Hey Jenny, okay, so here is your past life spread, and what we're going to do again is look at where we are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day, another important day, the death, and the lesson learned, with hints of time throughout. And so, again, I'm going to try to help you make connections where you can from this life to your current one, and I'm just going to relay to you the images and impressions I am already getting, and this is an interesting one. So here we're going to the Americas, and I don't get pulled a lot to North America for some reason, but that's where we're going. We're going to North America, and it feels very much, first of all, this is a female life. It feels very much like we're going to the West, and it feels like Utah, if anything. It feels like Utah in the sense of possibly Mormonism. That's what is coming up, because I'm also seeing this young woman, and I'm seeing a woman that is very much like it's not like pioneer time, but we're looking at someone who is dressed in the fashion of what you see when you like Amish people, like when you see Amish, not so much the bonnet, but like just the like the presentation of their women, and almost like old-fashioned hairstyle. Like it's kind of like if you've seen that show, what's it called, Big Love, and it's the old sect of the Mormons who still practice like the gosh, what's that called? Where there's multiple wives kind of thing. And I feel like we're actually going there, and it feels like when it was kind of in its heyday, if that makes sense. Like when it got really big. I don't know that time period, so look up the time period when it was like starting to become get to its peak kind of thing. That area. Okay, so we're looking at, so this woman is very light skinned, light haired. We're looking at someone who has it's like a braid, one of those like thick braids with the dresses that go to the ankle, very modestly dressed, very modest in general, very dutiful. We're looking at just that kind of typical woman of that not just the period, but like that community, I guess is what I'm saying. So already, if you have any connection to that, it could be something like if you are a hardcore feminist in this life, if you want to be very independent in this life, if you actually are in any way kind of intrigued by when you like hear about Mormonism or gosh, what is that word? It's not polyamory, it's darn, oh, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. You can Google it. It's where there's multiple wives kind of thing. If you like, or like if Big Love came out, that show, maybe you've watched it or you've heard about it and you were like, this is really interesting. Not something that you want to do, but just like really interesting. Like there's a little bit of like an emotional trigger to that. Keep that in mind. Or if there's a trigger when you hear about women who are what's it called? Just like kind of like not used, but like this is where feminism comes in. Like when it comes to like women not being properly like given credit for being a independent, complete person on their own, or used for property, women as property, that kind of thing. If that speaks to you at all, I think this is where it might stem from. Let's get into this a little bit. So what you do with the majority of your time, we're looking at the food card. And so the food card can be, it's been chefs and people who are handing out food to the homeless for most of their time. This food card applies to someone who, it's a couple of things. We're looking at someone who is very entrenched in a big family, a community, someone who takes care of family, someone at this time, I don't feel like it's your immediate I don't feel like it's like a husband and kid kind of thing. I feel like you are part of a large family. I feel like there are sisters that you work with, and I also feel like there are full sisters, half sisters. We're looking at people who are like somewhat inbred. They're somewhat somewhat like this is where it cousins kind of thing go together, if that makes sense. So I guess it's kind of like incest, but to them it's not, because it's so common for these people. So if you read articles about incest or anything like that, and then that triggers you, that would stem from here. Okay, so I'm looking at someone who is in a large home, and it's almost like an industrial kitchen in a home, because what you do is prepare for mealtime every day. Every day, that's what you do. And there's a lot of people to feed. And it's exhausting work, and you're supposed to act like you are proud of yourself, proud of the work. You're supposed to act like you're pleased with your role. It's very interesting. So in your current life, if you find that you're someone who used to or still do, you put a face up for the world, you put one face, like happy face for everybody, even if you're really sad. If you're just someone that it's almost like second nature, where you're just like, I'm fine, but really you're not. Or if you find it hard to talk to people about your emotional, like what's going on inside of you, if it takes a while for that to come out, and if you're uncomfortable with sharing your emotions, if the emotions are not pleasant, it can stem from this as well. I feel like that would be coming up in a way to tell you to let go of that, if that speaks to you, to kind of start like learning to, it's like, what's it called, like emotional barfing. It makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's almost like it's necessary because of how much you were such a kept woman in this life. So kept, like you really had to act as though this is the life that you wanted, and you could be no happier serving anyone else other than your community. At the same time, so also on the flip side, you could also be a soul that came back in this life, and you are in touch with your emotions, and you do express yourself, because here I feel like it's very locked down, closed down, no expression, no authentic expression at least. So in your current life, you could have come back to be someone who's like, screw that, I am who I am, and I'm expressing myself because I didn't get to last time, so keep that in mind as well. There's a lot here. I feel like something about community. If you feel like being part of a community is very natural for you, that would make sense. On the other hand, you could be someone who came back in this life and you're like, I'm not going to be a part of anything, association or community or church or temple, whatever it is, because of your possible desire for such independence, because of how there was no independence here. So the food card also plays another role, because I feel like there's also duties or tasks where you would go out, and the food here is grown on the land, and I feel like part of your task is along with the other women is the like growing and harvesting of certain foods that you would have. I feel like potatoes play a role for some reason. So if you're a potato girl, if you love potatoes, you can love potatoes in this life or you can hate them. I would say that there is something about like an extremity, like you would either really love them or really hate them. So if that speaks to you, I feel like there's something there with that. This food also is it's very organic. It's very clean. So if you find in your current life that you love the idea, you feel comfortable and you're familiar with the idea of clean eating organically, eating from the land, if you have a green thumb, on the flip side, you could be someone who's all about junk food in this life because of the clean eating here. It was almost like a religious eating. It was almost like there's only a set type of food you would eat. So in your current life, you can come back and be like, I just want to try everything because I didn't get a good, range of things here. So you could be that kind of person in this life. as well as, yes, you could have a green thumb, or you could be someone who does not care at all about growing anything because of having to do it here as your duty. It wasn't like a pleasure here, though, I mean, it wasn't displeasurable, so to speak, or it, you know, it wasn't something you hated, it was just, it was a chore, put it that way. So if you come back in this life, if you find that you do enjoy gardening and plants, it would very much be because it's a pleasure and you've chosen it rather than it being a chore. Alright, so let's move forward to the first important day. Here we have the Enlightenment card. So this is an enlightening day. Something's happening in your head where you are realizing something. There is the Karmic Relation card. And this card is like a lonely feel. So, we're looking at someone here who is very young, and I feel like this is a day, I feel like you are meeting the person that you are being arranged to marry. I feel like you're meeting this person, and up until this moment, all you've seen or heard are your gaggle of girls who giggle and look forward to this day and can't wait to be matched. And I feel like this day you see your match and it's not what you imagine. It's not like meeting your prince. It's not like meeting your soulmate. I feel like they match you with a man who is older than you, who is like very well off and a great reputation, but it's almost like you walk into the room to meet this guy and it's almost like you thought it might be someone else. You thought like, oh, my parents are going to make sure I get, you know, Tom, like someone that you know you've been friends with or you've grown up with or you've eyed, or where you have a good repertoire, however you say that, repertoire with. And it turns out to be this older man in the community who you respect and admire, but almost like you think of him like possibly your dad's friend, you know, like that kind of thing. And I feel like this was meant to happen because it was meant to shake you up and wake you up. And there's this moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought. And it's weird because it's like you are not trained to think in this life. You are not, in fact, you're trained to not think. You're trained from birth to be dutiful. And however, because you're human still, you have allowed yourself, like a lot of girls, or most of the girls in the community, you've allowed yourself to kind of have fancy thoughts about what marriage life might be like, how lovely it is, because the women in this community do not speak their truth. So you have kind of been misled by all of these other women who don't speak their truth, who don't really tell you how it is. And now here you are face to face with this reality that is, in a sense, repulsive, and it's shaking you up inside. So in your current life, I feel like there's something about that. Try to make connections as far as it goes with being misled or being disillusioned by something in your life. Something about other people, something about not relying on other people to give you a accurate reflection of reality. Something about relying on yourself, your own intuition. Something like, I feel like this is being brought up to remind you that it's very, very important to rely on your own intuition over others, because other people can be very persuasive. And usually the people who are very persuasive can be very ignorant. You know, just because something is working out for them a certain way does not by any means mean that you are going to be experiencing that same reality as that person. So it's almost like if there's something happening where you're being led in a direction by someone else, whether it's family or friends or a coworker or colleague, it's going to be very important for you to check in with your intuition and see if it works with your story, your reality, what's going on in your life, okay? So I feel like we're seeing the karmic card here because that man, it's not this soulmate. kind of thing, like a romantic love soulmate thing. We're seeing a karmic card of this man because the man's soul came into this life with a contract with you in order to shake you up in this moment. So this moment is actually a growth moment because you're able to get a dose of reality that you never had before. And it kind of levels you up. And it's really kind of sucks too in this sense because you can't do anything about it. All you can do is actually be aware, which in a way is kind of worse emotionally when you're aware of being screwed over. You know what I mean? So you're aware of this harsher reality, however, it needs to happen because you need to grow. Your soul needs to grow in perspective. You need to understand what's going on. So it's like a moment where you understand that this life here, those women, what they say, it's all a lie. So it's a big hit to your soul, and it's, of course, it is positive. It's a good thing because you need it. Your soul needed it. It's kind of like just a reminder to check in with your reality, your truth. All right. So again, because our soul groups or other souls, we make contracts before we come in, and sometimes they're not always nice. It's not always like, yeah, we're going to be soulmates and romantic. It's going to be great. I'll meet you. I'll see you there. You know, let's go. Let's incarnate. It's not always like that. It's like, okay, I'm making this contract. When we meet, it's going to jar you a bit and you're not going to be happy, but it's for your own good. It's for your soul's best interest. And you're like, okay, totally. And then you get here, we forget everything. We forget these contracts. But that's what it is. This guy is actually helping your soul, but in the human perspective, it's kind of dreadful, okay? I feel like actually that is also meant to be brought up to remind you that everybody you meet is your teacher, in case you haven't heard that. I'm sure you have, but everyone is your teacher. And if you start looking at people as your teachers, even the, especially the people that you don't like or don't get along with, because those are the people that teach you patience, understanding, how to maneuver in certain situations that can be, negative or not very fun. So everyone is your teacher. And I feel like that's being brought up because whatever might happen in your life or be happening where you're having to deal with other people that are hard to deal with, if you start looking at those people as lessons and as teachers in this way, then you won't harbor any resentment towards them, which is important. You don't want to resent people. You want to learn to get over the resentment, and that's where the beautiful lesson comes in, right? So keep that in mind. Let's go to the next important day. Here we have a death card. And we have a child. And here we have love. Okay? So what's happening here is your husband dies. Your husband dies because he's old. And you're still young. I want to say you're not past mid-30s here. You're not past mid-30s. And your husband dies from old, just being an old guy. I feel like this person's actually quite unhealthy. I feel like there's maybe like tobacco involved or alcohol involved, something. This man is overweight. This man is unhealthy. So in your current life, you might be someone who is very, what's it called? You want someone who takes care of themselves because you have seen someone who doesn't take care of themselves and you see what happens to them. On the other hand, you might be someone who is taking care of someone or has found someone that you actually don't mind taking care of if something bad happens to them because you didn't have a choice here, whereas in your current life, you have a choice. So it's like you might be someone in your relationship. You're either, if you're in a relationship, it would be because you chose them. And if you're in a relationship and you're unhappy, it would be because they're not taking care of themselves. And also, if you're not in a relationship, it would be because you're waiting for that right person to come along on a romantic, passionate level that you didn't have here. Because there's over time, there's love, because it's not like, I feel like there's not like, I don't feel like he mistreats you. I just feel like there's no love. Like, it's almost like you feel platonic towards him, except, you have to sleep with him kind of thing, because it's your wifely duties. So I feel like if you're, like, the best relationship for you would be someone who gives you your freedom, who respects your voice, who respects your choices, who gives you space when you need it, you know, that kind of thing. So on this day though, we're looking at we're looking at your husband who dies. This child, you've had a child by him. I also feel like there is a miscarriage involved, or there is a failed attempt. Like, I feel like I don't know if it was hard to get pregnant, but there was something where there was one thing that happened and it didn't go through. So I feel like something like a miscarriage. So in your current life, if you've had issues getting pregnant, if you've tried, or if you're someone who actually doesn't want to get pregnant, doesn't want kids, it would make sense, because here it was your duty to have kids. It was almost like you were taught to want to have kids. So there was a bit of brainwashing involved. That's why I feel like being independent in your current life is so important. Or it's almost like, if you're not independent, try to, like, it's almost like strive to be, because that's where, like, the key difference is here, is like you're given this opportunity in this current life to be independent, to make choices, to have a voice as a woman, or, you know, a person in this time period. So anyway, so we're looking at this child who is your world now, and it's almost like, because he died or passed away, whatever, it's almost like a gift, because now you get to raise this kid on your own. And there's something about the grieving period here where they're very respectful of it, and I feel like you really play it up. Like, I feel like you're really playing it up, like you bring him up a lot, because you don't want people to start arranging a marriage for you for the next, you know, like you don't want them to start getting ideas like, oh, well, let's put her with someone. It's like, so you keep it's almost like there's an attire that these women wear, like they dress a certain way when they're grieving, and you go beyond the normal grieving period for the purpose of being able to raise your child basically on your own. Even though I feel like we see your family step in and surround you, but you don't mind your family. There's sisters involved, there's a mother involved. I feel like this is a very divided community when it comes to like women and men. So I feel like, yeah, we're going to see sisters and mothers kind of step in, and you find that you're even faking in front of them, because you realized everybody here is faking. This is all false. There's not a lot of authenticity that you come across here. So it's a weird kind of existence, because you love these people and yet you realize, I can't really show them how I feel. I can't be myself. I can't be authentic in front of them. It's a very strange feeling that you feel almost like a stranger around your family in a way that you didn't prior to this marriage, because you realize we're all faking. We're all lying to each other on some level. So in your current life, you can find that being authentic with your family or people close to you is very important. You might find that you cannot stand fake people. You just can't stand it. And also you might find that you're someone that can just smell them out. You could just be someone that knows right away that like it's BS. You know, you can just sniff out BS. And if that's the case, it would stem from here. Also, talking about a lost child here, if you're in your current life, if you've experienced anything with your female areas, as far as issues like you know, endometriosis, or if you've had a miscarriage, or if there's just something with your, you know, uterus area, pelvic area, if there's issues if you've experienced any issues with that, I mean, it can also be really bad periods too. So anything in that area that is just like off or extreme or anything like that, if that's the case, it would stem from this. So how this can also read is, one, you could be someone that wants a big family because you get to choose to have your big family. It's a choice. Or you can feel like you really want a small family to no children, because here it wasn't a choice, you had to. So anyway, we see this child and you just really happy with each other, because you are able to, I feel like this child is the start of something different in the community. You've begun almost like a new generation, the very start, the seed of a new generation of, because it's a girl, but a new generation of children or young, you know, girls who will be able to see through the bullshit. Okay? So it's like that was kind of your purpose in this community, was to start bringing this community's truth to light. And you don't even realize it. That's the beauty of it. You won't be able to see, because you'll be long gone by the time you see the effects that your daughters' have, if that makes sense. But this is where it begins. You are at the start of disrupting the current way of things here, which is a very positive thing for many, many people here, okay? So in your current life, you might feel like you want to be part of change. You might feel like you're someone that wants to, again, it's that feminist thing. You might just really be for the equality of women and the voice of women, and or just even could be the voice of equality. It might be stretch beyond women when it comes to that. It might be like you want everyone, no matter what their race or creed or whatever, religion, whatever it is, that you feel everyone should be equal. So if equality is important to you in society, that could stem from here as well, because there was definitely not that. We do not see that here. So let's go to the death. Here we have the accident card. So I'm trying to see what that is. Let's see. The accident card. What happens here? Because it's showing me you later. So it's later. We're looking at someone who's in her 50s. I want to say 50s. I feel like we're looking at someone who looks a bit more weathered than she should, but it's because of all this work that you do. These women, the women in this community work so hard. So I'm trying to see what this is here. It's just showing me like you're in the sun. Ah, okay, you're in the sun and you're working, and it's a heat stroke. So we're seeing someone that has a heat stroke. So you're having a heat stroke while you're working. You're still working out there doing things. I feel like someone nearby sees you collapse. There's not a lot of people. So this person can't get you out of the sun. They need help. So we're seeing someone running for help, coming back, and it's almost like you're in a daze, and you're in a daze, until it goes black. And I just feel like you're under the sun, and that's where you go. So in your current life, you could be someone who doesn't like to be out in the sun for some reason. If you just, just like a random thing, if you don't like being in the sun, you might not be like a beach person. In fact, that might not be it. On the flip side, you could be someone who wants to be in the sun almost to conquer that. If you are someone that likes to face their fears, then you would be someone who would conquer the sun. And how you do that would be in like, simple ways like tanning, laying out. That's how your soul would conquer the fear of the sun. We're also looking, so in your current life, if you find that you get headaches, because I feel like this affects the head. If you get a racing heart, if you sweat very easily, you also might be someone that has like that. You stay cold in your hands and feet. You might find that you stay cold a lot, or you get cold very easily, and I feel like that would be like a mechanism, like a survival mechanism of your soul coming back and being like, there's no way I'm going to be overheated again. I'm going to stay very, very cold. So keep that in mind too. Oh, also it might even mean that your soul chose to be born somewhere where it snows. So that'd be interesting to know if you were born somewhere where it gets nice and very cold like that, or it doesn't get overly hot. It could also be, you could be someone that does not like to exert yourself physically, which can mean like simple exercise or whatever, like basically where you make yourself sweat. That could be it as well because of what happened here. Something with asthma. If you have asthma, it would stem from here as well. Lightheadedness, dizziness, vertigo. So keep that in mind as well. If any of those, if you've experienced any of those, it would come from here. Now we come to the lessons, simplicity. So we're looking at the simplicity card for a lesson, and it's really, really interesting because this is the most simple life as far as it goes with, you have a schedule. You wake up, and there's your schedule, and you know exactly what you're supposed to do every day. You know exactly how you're supposed to act, and you know exactly how you're supposed to speak and behave, and that is very simple. It's a very simple life. It really is. You have your tasks and duties and your role and your place in life. Very simple. No confusion there. However, in that very simple, non-confusing life, we see a lot of stuff happening. We see a lot of emotional growth and turmoil, realizations, epiphanies. We're seeing someone who is caged, who's realizing as she's growing up how caged she is, not just she, but her sisters as well. So we're seeing, kind of like in this simple life, we're seeing a soul learning so many lessons. We're seeing a soul learning basically the beginning of how to tap into their own intuition and how to read their own emotions and realize that they are an independent person. They are not one of, they're not just part of this community. They're also an independent person with their own feelings, realizing they can't give voice to those feelings. There's a lot of emotional turmoil in this life, but it all has to be kept inside. So I feel like in this life, you're being given this life currently to express it. I feel like that's what really it's all about, is being able to express yourself, express what you find to be true, express your authentic voice. It's all about being authentic in this life. It's about just being being strong in your independence, because we're already independent. Like we're just based on being born in this time period. We are given freedoms that you never could have before, especially as a woman too, a gender like that gender, we are given opportunity and freedoms and we're given that independence, but it's really, I feel like, about harnessing it in a way that is unique, that will give you it almost like there's an edge to it for you. Like you're not just independent, you're not just, free, you don't just have these opportunities. It's like time to actually do something about it, So I feel like that's really what is coming up for you. So hopefully you were able to make connections with this life. This was one of the longer ones. There was a lot in here. But I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for letting me read you.